What can you do when the whole world feels like it's burning around you? What can you do when everything seems to be going wrong? What can you do when you feel useless? When you feel as if you cannot help and you feel like you need to do something? Do you know what? With the Ukraine war and with other things going on and coming out of COVID the last couple of years, and I don't know if we're coming out of it or not, I'm not quite sure what's going on anymore. There's been times, and especially now, that I kind of feel like I want to help, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do, so therefore I feel kind of useless. So let's have a chat about that. What can we do when the world's burning around us and we feel kind of useless to help? I'm Steven Webb, and this is Stillness in the Storms, and this is the podcast that helps you to, I was going to say feel better when things are wrong. No, it just helps you to find that little bit of stillness when the world's burning, I suppose, and that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to, bring out in the foremost. First of all, I always start my podcast, well, recently anyway, the last few podcasts, with what's been happening this week, and just a little plug for my website and my newsletter. You can head over to stephenwebb.uk and you can sign up to my newsletter, which basically just tells you what I'm doing, what I'm reading, what I'm listening to, maybe what I'm watching, and just my thoughts at the moment about different things, and a little bit of, sometimes a link to a meditation that I've done and things like that to give you a little bit more inner peace. But what's been happening this week? Well, on Monday I'll find out whether or not I can do a second term as mayor. They'll vote me in or vote me out. But this week's just been crazy busy with meetings and other such things. But if you're like me, and I know I went through a long time of not engaging with the news, not having anything to do with the news. When I was really, really suffering on it, I hit my rock bottom 7-8 years ago. One of the first things I had to do is I had to disconnect from the world. I couldn't cope with the world. It was too much information for me, so I had to take a step back. And I stopped watching the news. I stopped reading the newspapers. I stopped going on websites or anything. And I even, what do you call it, deactivated my Facebook and didn't go on Twitter or anything. I'd done this for about 8-9 months, but the news was a good 3 or 4 years. And it gave me the opportunity to take a step back from things because I wasn't ready to be able to handle it. And when I say handle it, I mean I wasn't ready to deal with these things without becoming attached, without becoming so caught up in it, feeling like I had to fix it. And I know sometimes even now I find it frustrating, especially, we got a war in Europe. What the hell is that about? Now, we could go into the details of it. I don't want to go into the details of it. Who started what, why. There's a war, and people and children will die. Innocent people will be affected by the sanctions. And it's an awful situation. So my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to anybody that suffers from war. This isn't the only one in the world, but it's the one in Europe, in the Western world. What feels like the Western world. And there's been many civil wars all over the world going on anyway. But this one's particularly feels close to home. And I kind of feel that, what can I do about it? I feel kind of useless. But that's not true. There's two things we need to remember when things like this are happening. And that is, what are we in control of? And what can we do about it? And we have to be realistic about it, not in some kind of feeling like we should stop it or we should make a difference. We have to step up. Then if you're in a position to, brilliant, please do that. But if, like me, there's not a lot I can do, I've got no influence over Putin or Biden or Boris or any of the other leaders. I've got no influence over the soldiers. But what I do have is influence over myself and what I do. And locally, arm's length, as Jumpo, my one of my spiritual teachers would say, what can you do at arm's length? Well, you can still create the sanctuary around you. You can still be calm for your family. You can still be calm for yourself. And don't be hard on yourself. Don't be beating yourself up because there's horrible atrocities going on in the world, and we beat ourselves up because we're not fixing it. We're not doing something about it. We feel like we should. We feel like we got to get out there and protest or do something. Really, sometimes we're just not in a position to be able to do that. We got to go out there and living. We've got to carry on with daily life. But we can not let it overwhelm us. So if you turn on that news bulletin or not, the news bulletin's going to be the same. If you are affected by it or not, the news bulletin's going to be the same. And if we end up making our lives worse by feeling depressed or getting really down and anxious on our end in our life, it's not going to improve their lives. No matter how miserable you become, no matter how downtrodden you become in your life, you're not going to change something the other side of the world or even next door. So I think that's really important to remember in these times when, you having a miserable life in sympathy of what they're going through is not going to improve their lives. They would much rather you lived in gratitude, you got on with your day and you enjoyed the day, rather than wallowing in your own self-pity because we feel like we should be suffering because they are suffering. That doesn't help anything. But we feel like we cannot be happy if they're not happy. We cannot enjoy freedoms and joy if they're not enjoying freedoms and joy. Can open our heart and have empathy for them. One of the best ways in which we can do that is by getting on with our lives. And when we have the opportunity, say we're against this. We're open-hearted for you. We feel for you. We can't understand and know what you're going through because unless we are in it with our own lives, you just cannot. But you can recognize it. But we don't have to recognize it every time like, hey, I'm feeling grateful for my life. But then flip it around and go, I know others are suffering at the moment. And you don't have to feel guilty to have a good day. I suppose that's what I'm saying. So what can we do? We just get on with our lives. We can understand and see it. We can have some empathy and compassion for them. Or for whatever's going on. You may have something going on in your life that's much closer to home. It's way more painful. But can you do anything about it? Are you able to change the outcome? Are you able to reverse it? Go back in time? Have you got your DeLorean that you can go back in time and redo it? No, I'm guessing you haven't. So it's accepting the present situation. I accept what it is. Can I do anything with it? Probably not. So that's arm length, carry on doing what you can do. What are you doing for your community? What are you doing for your work colleagues? What are you doing for yourself and your family? Are you still treating them and those situations and those projects now in your life with compassion? Or are you getting fixated with the war and neglecting the other things? So that's what I wanted to come on and say is this week's podcast. I know it's quite a short one. I know it isn't really full of deep wisdom, but, not all wisdom has to be really deep and profound. Sometimes the best wisdom is just simple. What are you in control of? Can you do anything about it? Can you be compassionate? And can you still bring compassion to every aspect of your life that you are in control of? I think that's the ultimate question. So I'm going to say take care, and my heart so goes out to the Ukrainians and anybody that is suffering from war. And whenever there's war, it's from all sides. The soldiers that are doing the attacking are as much a victim as anybody else, albeit it doesn't feel like that and doesn't look like that. Horrible situation. But take a deep breath, deal with it in the best way you know how. If you find it really hard, turn off the TV. If you find it hard to deal with, put away the newspaper. Put away the Facebook for a moment, because every other post is about the Ukraine. Even this podcast that you tuned into is about the Ukraine. It's about something bigger. It's about you and us and what we're doing with our lives. That's what's important. That's the one thing you're in control of, and the only thing probably you're in control of. So head over to stevenwebb.uk. That's stevenwebb.uk. And yeah, there's lots of things to do on there. Read some of my posts, listen to my other podcast that has meditations, download my newsletter, other things like that. Donate a coffee if you want. But above all, just do what you can at arm's length, and don't worry about something you have no control of the other side of the world. Take care. I love you guys.